Hey scholars, it's good to be back with you. Today I'd like to go over plotting in Mathcad Prime 11. Now you can see I've got Mathcad started here, and I've zoomed in pretty far. I may even go in a little further just in case some of you are watching on phones. And I'm going to go up here to Document, go to Margins. I'm going to go to Narrow Margins. There we go. We can see, we can use most of the screen now. So if we're going to do plotting, I guess we need a function to plot. So I typed one in earlier. There we go. No, that doesn't have any physical meaning as far as I know, but it's a handy function. And there's one thing to understand about plotting in Mathcad Prime 11. There's two ways to do plots. Now, if you're like most people, you'll go over here and click the Plot tab and start there. That works fine. These are something they at least used to call quick plots. But that's not the only place you can plot. If you go over to Math and go under Chart Component, now why they buried it under Chart Component, I don't know, but here it is. You can say Insert Chart Component, and you'll have a window here that you can make a plot with. We'll work on that a little later. So the big idea is there are two completely separate plotting functions in Mathcad Prime. Now, unfortunately, they're not compatible with each other. They don't talk to each other. Making a plot in using one method doesn't have anything to do with plotting using the other method. I have no idea why they did this. It's really my only gripe about Mathcad Prime, is the plotting functions seem a little goofy to me. Quick plots are by far the easier of the two, although they're both pretty easy. Quick plots really are quick, as the name would suggest. So let's start there. Go and click Plot on that Plot tab right there, and see where it says Insert Plot. If you click there, you can see there's a couple of different plots you can make. You have XY, which is rectangular. You have polar. You have a contour plot and a 3D plot. Now the contour plot and the 3D plot are both in 3 dimensions. So you have an X and a Y as your independent variable, and then your Z as your dependent variable. For right now, let's just do an XY plot. So I'm going to click right there, and this pops up on the screen, and it's pretty easy to fill out. So I've got this function f of x. Let's go down here to the x-axis, and let's plot x, and say f of x. And there it is. Nothing to it. So easy a professor can do it, so you know what that's got to be like. And I can bring this up a little further, I think. Yeah, nope, see, it won't. See, I've got that too high up. Mathcad thinks that's above the definition of f, so it's not going to work. Let me go back down there. Now, you can't do a lot of formatting with this, but you can do some. You can change the width of the window or the height, so I'm going to do that. And you can see that I've got these labels on the X and Y axis. If you click the plot, you can go in here and you can say axis expressions under this little box right here under axes. If you turn that off, click here, those axis expressions go away. So if you're trying to clean up your sheet, you can do that. I prefer to leave them there. Another thing you can do is you can decide where you want the x-axis to cross the y-axis. Most of the time I want it on 0, so I'll leave that on. Also, you can do logarithmic scaling. That'll scale the y-axis vertical. Now, this isn't going to work because there are negative numbers here, and you can't have negative numbers in a log scale. Let me try something here. If I add, I don't know, 1 to that. Okay, there. Now everything's positive. If I click there, I should be able to go to log. Yeah, there it is in log scale. All right, so let me go back to what I had before. Get rid of that offset. There we go. Another thing that's really easy to do in a quick plot is you can change the axis ranges. So right now it's going -10 to 10. That's its default. Mathcad has no way of knowing what you want the axes to be, so it just guesses -10 to +10. So let's go from -5 to +5 maybe. There. Just click over there. There it is. Zoomed in a little further. Another thing I can change is the step size. Right now the step size is 1, and all you have to do to change the step size is to set the next tick mark. So I'll make that 4.5. So now it's going to step in steps of half rather than a whole. And there it is. Well, that's a little busy. Let's see if I can stretch this out a bit. There. There we go. And I can do the same thing on the vertical axis. Let's maybe make that go from -0.5 to 1.5. Let's see what we get. There we go. Now, I'm not completely sure why it's decided to go to scientific notation there. I think if I pick that, yeah, there we go. Now I'm not using scientific notation. So that's pretty handy. I can also add a second trace to it. So let's make a function called df, and we'll just make that, let's go over to math here, go into operators. See that derivative right there? Let's click that, and let's make df be the derivative of f of x. So now I've got a second function. Let's go over here and go to plots again. See right there where it says add a trace? I'm going to click right there, and let's make this df of x. So there's the function and its derivative. Ooh, the vertical axis isn't too good, so let's fix that. Looks like maybe if I go from -1 to perhaps 2, let's see if that works. That's better. Let's go from -2 to 2. There. Okay, now we've got it. Now, black and blue are pretty easy to mistake, so I'm going to click right there and go to trace color. Let's make that red. There we go. And I don't like that that blue is kind of faded. Let's go for something brighter. Go to more colors. Wow. I'm going to go right there. Okay, good enough. Right now, there's no markers on there. I can put markers on there. They call them symbols here. Now, the only hitch is I have no idea how many points Mathcad decided to use to create those plots. They're nice and smooth, so there's probably a lot of points. Let me add some dots here. Wow, look at that. There's so many of them, you can't even distinguish them all. So maybe I don't want to do that here. I'm going to try one more thing here. Let's say you don't want it picking the number of points to plot. Let's say you want to do it on your own. Well, I can do that. I can define a range of x's if I like. Let's go from -5, and I'm going to put a comma here. That the next number is going to be the next number in the series. So -4.5, and I'm going to make it go to 5. Now that's going to be a really blocky plot. Yeah, see? Ugh, that's not so good. Let's make this maybe 4.9. See how it's getting smoother as I add more points? Now if I decide to click on F and add the symbol, let's put a dot there. So now we can see them more clearly. When I click on this, right over there, I can go to trace thickness if I like. I can make a wider line if I like. And you can see the dots got bigger. Let's maybe make that 4.8. There, now the dots are a little easier to see. Now you can see that's a pretty rough looking plot. You would probably want more points than that. I'm going to do two things here. I'm going to turn off the symbols, and I'm going to get rid of that, let it go back to what it was. So there you go. That looks pretty good. Now let's delete that second trace. Let's go to here and click down there under DF. So see that got bright right there? And I'm going to remove that trace. So it's gone now. So I'm back to my original. One of the things I'm going to do also, let's bring X back. Okay, now I've got a pretty rough looking plot there. Let's also maybe zoom in a little bit again. Let's maybe make that -1 to 2, and maybe 1.5 perhaps. There, that's close enough. Click there, and there's some interesting things I can do here. I can change the kind of plot I want. If I go up here to click type, right now I've got something called a line trace. Maybe I want a column trace. Okay, now it's showing me columns. Now, I don't have this set up right, but you can do horizontal bars if you want. Looks kind of weird when you do it that way. I can do stems. All right, and there's some others here. But right now, let's go back to line trace. Now, for some reason, it turned the symbols on. I'm going to turn those back off again. All right. Another thing you can do that's nice is you can add a marker. And a marker is just a line that you're using as a reference. So I added a horizontal marker. This one is at 1.5. Let's make that go to 1.0. There's a horizontal marker right there. And there are also vertical markers you can use. I can add a vertical one. It is right there. And I can also drag it. I don't have to type in the number if I don't want. So let's maybe make it at 1. I got close. There. So I've got some markers there. If you're trying to identify some points on the plot, those can be pretty handy. If I want to delete them, just click there and say delete marker. Click there and say delete marker again. So that's pretty nice. That's a feature I haven't seen before. Now let's try a contour plot. I'm going to get rid of all this stuff. All right, let's just make a function of f of x and y. And this should look kind of like an oval as a contour plot. So I'm going to go through and hit contour plot. There it is. Now this has some of the same features that the XY quick plot has. I can change the horizontal axis as I like. So let's go from -5 to 5 again. And to keep things, I don't know, kind of symmetrical, I guess, I'm going to go from -5 to 5. Okay, looks the same when you zoom in. The other thing is I can change the z-axis, the color coding, if I want. Let's make that maybe go from 7 to 70. See what it does. Okay, I can add more to it if I want. I can even make this, I can define the step sizes if I like. So you can change that as you like. And of course you can resize it and everything else. Now let's talk about the things you cannot do in quick plots. You can't do any axis labels, you can't do grids, you can't add text, you can't do any of that stuff. For reasons I guess I don't really understand, you have to go to the other kind of plot, the chart component plot, to see all those things. So let's give that a try. All right, let's grab that function again, if I can remember what it was. All right, same function we had before. Let's go over here to Math and go to Chart Component. Like I said, I'm not sure why they buried it here, but here it is. I don't know why you'd put two plotting functions in two different places in the code, but it is what it is. Okay, I'm going to make that a little smaller here. Now this one, you interact with it a little differently. You have to tell it in here under inputs, you have to tell it what the X's and Y's are. So I've got the cursor inside that input box. Right click and see where it says insert x-axis expression, click that. What we want that to be, well, X. And go over here and click. Now, insert y-axis expression. Okay. Put f of x. And there's the plot right there. Now I don't need the inputs anymore, so I'm going to hit the minus sign and shrink that down. So this is okay, but it's pretty tough to look at. The nice part about the chart components is you have a lot of control over how you format the plot. So I'm going to go in here and I'm going to double click on it. And I get something bigger than my window. Let's see if I can, there we go. There, I think you can see most of it now. There we go. Now you can see everything. So this is kind of a parameters pad you can use to assign all kinds of things. So to start, let's click on X right there. And first thing I want to do is I want to make the numbers a lot bigger. Right now they're 8. Let's go to maybe 14. Now, one of the quirks of this is the sizes you see in this window are not the sizes you see on your worksheet. Again, I don't know why they did that, but that's how it is. You can see these numbers got bigger down here, but they're not as big as those. That's still a little small, so instead of 14, let's maybe go to 18. There, that's better. And let's do the same thing for Y. Now, if you'll notice, the program's responding a little slowly. That's nothing to do with Mathcad. That's because I'm using Camtasia screen capture here, and there's an extra layer between what I'm doing and what shows on the screen. Now, see right there where it says 1? That's the first trace. If we add more traces, you can there'll be a 2 or 3 or 4 there. So let's go to color. Let's go to a nice bright blue. I like the solid line style. Let's make it nice and dark. There it is. Okay, let's go to setup now. All right, I've got a name here. Right now I'm going to call it trace 1. And go to styles again. And let's see, that looks pretty good. Let's go to X. Do I want grid lines? Sure. Do I want an X-axis label? Let's do that. Turn on the axis title and just type whatever you want in there. Again, the font's a little small, so let's go back up to 18 there. And here let's go to Y-axis. And go back up to 18 again. Now when you have everything how you want it, let's turn on the other grid lines as well. There, that's better. When you're done, just close this and it'll appear here. Okay, so that's looking a lot better. One nice part about this is you can highlight it, right click, and you can copy it so you can paste it into another document. Let's do what we did before. I'm going to move this down. Remember that derivative we did before? Let's do that again. There, now I've got that function defined. How am I going to add that to this plot? Well, click there. See that plus? Just click that and see it opens this up again. I'm going to add 2 more traces. So right click, say X-axis expression. See that's X2 now, also X. And insert a second Y-axis. I'm going to call that DF. Well, there it is. I can't see it very well. We'll fix that here in a second. There, so now I've got both of them on there. Open this up again. And once again, pull it down to where we can see the whole thing. See, there's a 2 there where there used to be a 1. Let's click that. I hate that green. Let's make that red. And again, let's make it really big. So now we can see both of them. Under setup, see where name is 2? I'm going to say there. Let's call that derivative. Whoops. How about if I spell it right? Derivative trace 1. Okay, that looks pretty good. Now, right now we don't have a legend on here. Let's turn that on. Chart legend. Okay, where do we want this? Man, that's as good as any place. But see, it's kind of in the way down here. What I can do is I can tell it how many columns I want. There we go. Let's do that. Legend. There we go. That legend's pretty small. Let's open this back up again. Go to legend. And make that font good and big. Let's make it 18 as well. Okay, there you go. So that's much better. All right, so what we've done is we've looked through the 2 different kinds of plots that are in Mathcad Prime. There's the quick plots that are under the plot tab, and there's these chart components that are under the math tab. Both work pretty well, but all the good formatting stuff is under chart components. The quick plots are meant to be just a sketch. You can't do much formatting with them. You can't do grid lines or axis labels or anything like that. Between the two of them, hopefully you'll find everything you need. I hope this helps, and we'll talk to you next time.